And first of all, I would like to mute everybody first so that we can have a quiet discussion. But if you have any questions, just unmute yourself and ask. You can interrupt me anytime you like. Okay, so welcome again. And I am going to share the screen with you. Okay, today we are the last one of term one. And will there be war between China and United States? Obviously, everybody hopes it won't, but you never know. So, is there a war next? I will look at it from two angles. The first angle is from the US point of view, and the angle is obviously from the Chinese point of view, and then we can discuss. There's something called American exceptionalism, and it is reflected in their leaders. For example, the ex-president Donald Trump talked about America first. So putting the American interest as the highest priority. Well, that is actually what every nation should do instead of putting other nations' priority first. But for American, they think that they can forever maintain this superiority all the time through whatever means, including military, economy, technology, and soft power, etc. Nixon also has its own Nixon doctrine, which emphasized the need for the United States to maintain its leaderships in global affairs. Donald Reagan portrayed itself as a beacon of freedom and opportunity. And these are the speeches, for example, said, I have spoken of the shining city all my political life, but I don't know if I ever quite communicated what I saw when I said it. But in my mind, it was a tall, proud city built on rocks, stronger than oceans, windswept, God-blessed, and teeming with people of all kinds living in harmony and peace. A city with free ports that hummed with commerce and creativity. And if there had to be a city walls, the walls have doors, and doors were open to anyone with the will and the heart to get here. It described a American which is in harmony and in peace. Unfortunately, we don't see that today in America. The previous US policy advisor to Trump, he has always been articulating a strong stance on America's dominance in international relations. This is a book, The 100-Year Marathon, by Michael Pillsbury. He discussed the concept of full spectrum dominance in the context of US-China relations. Pillsbury argues that China seeks to achieve dominance across all spheres, including economic, military, technology, ideology, and that the United States must respond accordingly to maintain its position of global leadership. Obama, in a speech in 2008, he said, I believe in American exceptionalism, just as I suspect the BRICS believe in British exceptionalism, and Greece believed in Greek exceptionalism. Obama's statement acknowledged Americans' uniqueness while also recognizing that other nations may hold similar beliefs about themselves. Hillary Clinton. America is great because America is good. So enough with the bigotry and bombast. Donald Trump's not offering a real change. He is offering empty promises. And what are we offering? A bold agenda to improve the lives of people across our country, to keep you safe, to get you good jobs, to give your kids the opportunities they deserve. The choice is clear. Every generation of Americans have come together to make our country freer, fairer, and stronger. None of us can do it alone. I know that at a time when so much seems to be pulling us apart, it can be hard to imagine how we'll ever pull together. But I'm here to tell you tonight, progress is possible. Of course, this is empty promises during election campaign. Besides feeling themselves as exceptional, Americans also act above international laws and norms. For example, the invasion of Iraq in 2003, with the pretext that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction. Of course, we now know that there isn't any, but at the time, it was the excuse. Again, this action was undertaken without authorization from United Nations Security Council, and hence criticized by many countries and recognized as a violation of international law. Obama, actually, it's not Obama started it, but Obama used a lot of drone strikes in several countries, including Pakistan, Yemen, Somalia, Afghanistan, etc. These are all sovereign nations, but Americans conduct those drone strikes can be considered as an invasion, violating the sovereignty of other nations and killing civilians. Many of the times, the civilian deaths is higher than what they call the target enemy. We all know about the enhanced interrogation, and also there's a lot of black sites where Americans keep the prisoner of war, but they don't call it prisoner of war, because prisoner of war is a special term in international law, and they are protected if they surrender. But naming them as enemy combatant, therefore, Americans can act outside of international law and norms. We know that they have a secret, not secret anymore, a detention camp at Guantanamo, and there are prisoners there for almost more than 20 years, without trial, without lawyer, and in isolation. We also know from Edward Snowden that the NSA, the National Security Agency, has massive surveillance activities, collecting all, not just many, it's collecting all electronic communication data whichever pass through the American networks. You also install capture device in key hubs so that even data flowing through the hub is also being collected by NSA. For example, we know that they have a hub in Finland in order to capture all the data coming out from Europe, etc. Americans is very frequent withdraw from international agreements. For example, the Paris Agreement on climate change, the Iran nuclear deal, and lately, United Nations Human Rights Council and so forth. And one interesting is, for example, American accuse China of activities in South China Sea. And he always, every now and then, perform what they call the freedom of navigation, passing through very close to the South China Sea, and said China do not obey the international law on about the maritime affairs. But America itself hasn't signed that agreement. So America is not part of that agreement, but they are using that agreement as an excuse and for other people. These are many examples such as this. So the question is that we know that Americans want to be a leader, dominating global affairs, but can they? Here's a slide download from internet. American is the largest income, has the largest income inequality, highest poverty rate, greatest number of children in poverty, worst child welfare well-being, lowest social mobility, highest healthcare costs, most people with no healthcare, highest infant mortality rate, highest obesity rate, highest antidepressant use, shortest life expectancy at birth, highest carbon emissions, worst gender inequality, highest military spending, most armed sales, highest incarceration rates, worst murder rate, etc. Now, every day about 300 Americans are killed by guns, but they seems to have doesn't have any mechanism of controlling that rate. So let's look at the geopolitics. At the moment, there are two hotspots in the world. One of them is, of course, the Russia-Ukraine war. It has been ongoing for 2 years now, entering into the third year. At the beginning, Russia sent in the army and took quite a large chunk of land from Ukraine. And then later on, it withdrew. And at the moment, it is occupying about 40% of the land area. The Western allies, of course, get together and apply sanctions to Russia. So now 2 years has passed. What we notice is that the Western allies are running low in ammunition. USA Republicans are blocking further military aids. Ukraine is running out of young people to be cannon fodder. At the same time, the Russian economy doesn't suffer as much. The biggest loser, of course, is Ukraine. But the second biggest user is actually Germany. Germany lost its cheap energy from Russia. And the pipelines from Russia to Germany is also sabotaged and is now unable to supply gas through the pipelines. I don't think the West is winning in this Russia-Ukraine war. How long it will drag on, we don't know. But I think for the foreseeable future, it is very unlikely that the West can win. So I think the best strategy actually is to sit down and then negotiate a peace deal. We all know that from the recent interview, a peace deal was on the table in April 2020, but that peace deal was sabotaged by Boris Johnson. And then, of course, then the fighting goes on. At the moment, I think there is about 500,000 people already dead for that conflict. Another conflict is, of course, what is happening in Gaza at the moment. Last year, October the 7th, Hamas, the resistance movement in Gaza, allegedly attacked Israel. And then with that, Israel responded by bombing the Gaza, which is an open prison anyway. So they started bombing in the north, pushing the Palestinians southward. So Israel started this massacre in Gaza. Now, at the moment, there are different estimates, but most people agree that at least 30,000 people have already dead by now. Some say it's as much as 36,000. Among these people, about 70% are women and children. This recent war in Gaza is a one-sided slaughter. Hamas is not an army. It's not soldiers to soldier. Israel has air force. Israel has tanks. Israel has bombs supplied from the West. What the Hamas have are just jihadists fighting a very lonely war. So what would that imply? Middle East has always been a very dangerous area. Globally, it is one of the main areas supplying energy. Of course, today we now know that there are other sources, for example, from America, from Venezuela, or from Russia. There are other energy sources, but traditionally, Middle East is the main energy source for everyone else. With this involvement in Middle East, the Yemen Houthis are blocking shipping in the Red Sea, meaning any ships which depart from Israel or will enter port in Israel will be attacked. And up to now, the Houthis has disabled 2 British ships. Both of them are British ships. That's I don't know why. 2 British ships has been disabled. They call it sunk, but actually the ship is still above water. But definitely the sailors has abandoned the ship, so they are basically just floating around there too. That forced all the merchant ships not to go through Red Sea and the Suez Canal and then into Mediterranean Sea and then reach Europe. The merchant ships now needs to go down the west coast of Africa, turn around at the Good Hope, is a Good Hope port, and then return back, increasing the travel time. And of course, that means more expensive transportations. Since the Houthis is only targeting any ships which enter or depart from Israeli ports, so it should have a limited impact. But Americans, being the world's policemen, self-proclaimed policemen, set up to so-called protect the shipping lane, and therefore bombed Yemen. With that bombing, Houthis is now also targeting U.S. and UK ships because the British helped in the bombing. So at the moment, I think most of the Western ships will not be using Red Sea for the time being. Now, all this war indicates that the expensive Western weapons, sophisticated they may be, is not able to deal with much simpler consumer-grade drones. Of course, Yemen Houthis have some Western-produced missiles, mostly coming from the black market created in the Russia-Ukraine war. But at the same time, in the Russia-Ukraine war, we noticed that Iran has developed a drone which costs at most $10,000 to build. But in order to intercept these drones, Western allies need to use missiles which worth in the tens of millions or even in millions. So the cost of the war is now flipped. Sophisticated, expensive Western weapons seems to be unable to provide the protection it claims. And even if they can provide a protection, it's too expensive against the attacking consumer-grade level drones. That is a huge problem. If the war drags on, the impact on the economy is huge. The recent events has now showed the people in the world that Western media are not reliable source of information. So Americans' soft power in terms of control of the media. Of course, Australia here is part of that Western media. So unless you are also reading news from, say, Russia Today or in Al Jazeera or in other non-Western media, you only get one picture. The other side of the picture you cannot see unless you actively look at the information from another source. Once you do that, you will notice that the Western media is not trustworthy. And even in some survey, it indicates that the Western media is losing trust among people around the world. With Joe Biden as the president, US is now viewed as weak. Can't even get Israel to stop the massacre. It is also getting isolated in US Security Council. For example, one of the resolution in UN Security Council was about an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. The whole Security Council, except 2 countries, voted in favor of the motion, in favor of the resolution. So the only country which opposed an immediate humanitarian ceasefire is United States. So it is the only country which is by itself. The other one is UK, which voted abstain. In that way, we see that US is now being isolated in at least on issues about ceasefire in Gaza. On the left of the screen, you see a screen capture from the Washington Post. There is a recent G20 foreign relation ministers meeting. And during that meeting, after the initial photography sessions, so they entered into the closed door meeting. The journalists were given earpiece during the photo sessions. After the closed door meeting, of course, the participants will be speaking more openly. Unfortunately, this discussion was leaked because they forgot to switch off the channel. So the journalist was able to listen to what is happening in closed door. Our Australia is criticizing American, saying, well, meaning that even Washington's ally are now criticizing United States. So that is another indication that America is losing its soft power. At the moment, most of the people believe that the American empire is held together by lies, delusion, and ideology. Talk about democracy, freedom, but that's only talk. They don't do it themselves. And it's being isolated by the rest of the world. Of course, Americans still have a lot of allies. But as I have shown you in the war part, in the Russia-Ukraine war, the second largest loser are the European countries. But the reason for this conflict, Russia-Ukraine conflict, was set in motion because NATO expanded towards Russia. When the Soviet collapsed, there are explicit promises made to Russia that NATO will not expand. But unfortunately, after that, NATO keep on expanding. And because of a special relationship between Russia and Ukraine, then Ukraine being a member of the NATO becomes unacceptable to Russia. And that's why we have the Russia-Ukraine war. So if we want to look at the Russia-Ukraine war, we shouldn't start on the February 2020. We should look back a lot further, at least back to the collapse of the Soviet Union in order to understand the whole dynamics here. Same is for the Gaza. Why Hamas attack? Hamas is a resistance. And since the formation of Israel as a nation, people in Palestine has been systematically slaughtered, land taken away, and then squeezing to smaller and smaller area. So all this reflected in the global understanding. Just today, there was a active service member in United States set himself on fire in front of the Israel embassy in protest of the massacre of Palestinians in Gaza. And this person is still alive, but life-threatening injuries. So whether he can survive or not, we don't know yet. The world is also moving into a multipolar structure. After the collapse of Soviet Union, the world becomes a unipolar world, with America being the only major power. But today we are seeing multiple different structures appear, replacing some of those created after World War II. For example, World Bank, IMF, are now replaced and challenged by, for example, the Asia Infrastructure Development Bank, the New Development Bank, etc. And Belt and Road Initiative is very unique at the moment. There's no Western equivalent. Yes, the American and the G7 has talked about what they call Build Back Better World, BBBW. But unfortunately, we can only hear the slogan and haven't seen any action. The current event is now pushing Russia towards China. Now, why Russia and China get together? Go back to the collapse of Soviet Union. The newly formed Russia adopted a shock doctrine therapy, changing from its communist style of economic system into a free market system. And we all know that within a short few years, the Russians are very poor. There's no bread in the baker's store. People have to look at the rubbish bin in order to find some valuable things, etc. Then, at that time, Russia wanted to be integrated into Europe. We must remember that the population center and the political center of Russia is in Moscow, and it is in Europe. Of course, Russia has a very large landmass, so a part of Russia is in Asia. Russia wants to integrate it into Europe. They want to join the European Union. But we all know that Russia is not in the European Union. although many leaders, including Putin, has indicated that it wants to join EU. A conspiracy theory said that United States doesn't want Russia to join EU because Russia has energy, has resources, has all kinds of minerals. And if Russia and Germany work together, Germany being an industrial powerhouse, then the Europe economic strength will be larger than America, and hence challenge the leading role of America. And therefore, Americans push Russia back and do not want Russia to join the European Union. After trying a few times, I think Russia now has decided that it won't want to join European Union. It will become an Asian country. We have to look at how that will develop. But anyway, that is a possible reason why Russia is not part of European Union. In the Middle East, just early last year, we see that Iran and Saudi Arabia finally established a normal diplomatic relation. Of course, this is the work done by China. We also have another loose gathering called the BRICS. And just last year, end of last year, the BRICS expanded its membership. Initially, BRICS consists of 5 countries represented by the first alphabet: Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. But with the Plus, another 6 countries joined, and the BRICS Plus now control the majority of minerals, Russia, the majority of population, India and China, a sizable agriculture ability, Brazil, India, China, a sizable amount of oil. Saudi Arabia is now in, Russia is there, therefore there's a lot of oil. And again, with OPEC Plus, during the COVID, oil price fluctuates. And in order to control the price in US, instead of forcing the oil producer in US to sell to US at a lower price, the US government allowed the oil companies to sell at market price. But the stress on the economic system is huge. And therefore, Biden decided to use his petroleum reserve to lower the cost in US. So the strategic petroleum reserve is now running at about 40%. They want to refill the reserve at a price lower than $80 per barrel. But OPEC refused, and OPEC Plus refused. And therefore, the current strategic petroleum in United States reserve is still at a 40% level. And also that implies our oil, our gas from the petrol station will remain at the current level for the foreseeable future. Besides all these competitions, there is also an ideological competition. We know that United States talk about freedom, talk about democracy, talk about free market. So that is the ideology on one side. And then we also see the book, The End of History, saying that this will be the eventual political system humans have. This is the end of history. No more evolution of the human government structure. We also heard a lot from the US officials about rule-based international order. But what are these? What are the rule-based international order? What are the rules? Who set the rules? So against this, we have the Chinese saying, we will act according to the principles of United Nations. These are written out papers that we can refer to, written out documents that we can refer to. Will follow the principles of the United Nations. So we have an ideological competition level here. On the top level, we have the government system. We have the Western style election-based plus free market capitalist government system versus the Chinese socialist system where public and private companies cooperate rather than in a competition. In terms of international law or norms, one is calling itself rule-based, but nobody knows what are the rules. Or another one is based on the documents from the United Nations. So again, this is a competition. And in terms of competition, the Western talk about winners take all, whereas we know that the Chinese are promoting the win-win situation. In terms of a political structure, we have G7 against the BRICS Plus. In terms of the overall, the whole world system, we have the developed nations, which are the Europeans plus UK plus a number of British colony get independent. For example, Canada, US, Australia, New Zealand, and plus an odd one, which is Japan. So that are the developed countries, developed nations, versus the rest of the world. China and probably Middle East, South America, Africa, and so forth. They are generally called the global South, meaning they are developing countries or underdeveloped countries. So we have ideological competition at the same time. Add to the mix is that 2024 is a year of election. We have the presidential election in the United States, and there are about 50 other country leaders election around the world. For example, Taiwan had just finished their election of their president. Of course, the US president election will be in November this year. And then we also know that, for example, Argentina just changed their president and so forth. There are many, many elections going on this year. And the position of these countries can change drastically based on the election result. So it is a year of unknown. The Center for Foreign Relations also have the so-called conflicts to watch list in 2024. So we see that there are some red circles, some orange circles, and some yellow circles. They are according to priority. So let's look at the high likelihood, high impact. So they consider these three are the high impact, high likely event. The first one, from the United States point of view, is of course the political polarization around the presidential election this year. And they are predicting that it will lead to acts of domestic terrorism and political violence. The second high impact is, of course, the current war between Hamas and Israel. The third high impact, highly likely event for United States is the surge in migration to the southwest border of the United States, driven by criminal violence, corruption, economic hardship in Central Europe, Central America, and Mexico. So these are considered as the high impact, highly likely events that Americans have to keep and close watch during 2024. Notice the Russia-Ukraine war is not on the list because this particular war is getting less and less attention because people are not interested in it anymore. It has been ongoing for 2 years. The initial interest or initial attention has dropped, and therefore it becomes out of this list. It's not here, but the war is going on. The second list is moderate likelihood, but still high impact. Of course, it's the Ukraine war, resulting in intensified military operation and potentially leading direct NATO involvement. It all depends on whether US and NATO send in their military force officially. We know that there are so-called military advisors in Ukraine from both America and NATO, but they are unofficial. So whether that will escalate into a bigger war or World War III depends very much on whether America or NATO send in their troops officially. This second one, considered as moderately likely, is the relationship between China and Taiwan. Officially, all the countries who have diplomatic relationship with China agrees on the one China principle. That means there's only one China in the world, and Taiwan is part of China. Unfortunately, Taiwan is a very useful chess piece. If Taiwan can be used like Ukraine and trigger a war between China and Taiwan, just like trigger a war between Russia and Ukraine, then it will draw the attention of China's into the conflict, and hence less economic development, or at least that is what is hoped for, wishful thinking. So today, with the result of the Taiwanese presidential election, we know that Taiwan is still on the same path. Whether that will intensify. We don't know. But I would say the likelihood is very small. The other one is, of course, the direct confrontation between Iran, and Israel. Because at the moment we are still seeing the Western media describe Hamas or the Yemen's Houthis as supported by Iran. So you will look at this, they always say the Iran supported military groups, So it's still trying to emphasize the conflict between Israel and Iran. And we also know that Israel not only targeting Gaza, Israel is also targeting West Bank and attack Syria, attack Lebanon. So Middle East is really, really in a hot position. Another conflict might be some cyber attack on U.S. critical infrastructure, including its electoral system, including its power structure, etc. Because these days, many of these infrastructure are managed through networks. So if this network is being attacked, then the infrastructure will be disabled or at least damaged. This cyber attack can be done by a state or any non-state entity. So that is a great risk here. Another great risk is North Korea. Anytime when South Korea and the Western allies has any military drill, North Korea will send a missile across to the Pacific Ocean as a show of force. And now we know that North Korea have nuclear weapons, has long-range missile system. So it is a security crisis there. Another thing is the US government beholden by the Jews? Let's look at some data. This is from ChatGPT. I asked the ChatGPT for a list of Jewish members in President Biden's cabinet. So it returns the data up to January 2022. So it's 2 years old. But anyway, Anthony Blinken, still there. Janet Yellen, still there. Merrick Garland, still there. Secretary of Home Security, still there. Chief of Staff, still there. National Intelligence, still there. Assistant Secretary for Health, still there. So it is still accurate. So out of the cabinet, at least 7 here, has Jewish background. In terms of control of the Western media, the media company, again, according to ChatGPT, of course, we have the Murdochs, which now control Fox News, the Wall Street Journal, and the New York Post. We have Redstone, chairman of Viacom, CBS, MTV, Paramount Pictures, and other media. Iger, Walt Disney, who owns ABC, ESPN, Pixar, etc., etc. More. Roberts, Comcast, which owns NBC, Universal, MSNBC, CNBC, Universal Pictures, and various cable networks. The next one, CBS Corporation, overseeing CBS Television Network, CBS News, Showtime, and other assets. Suka, CNN Worldwide, and producer of NBC. Then the next one, the New York Times. So Washington Post, New York Times, etc. Most of the Western media are controlled by a Jew. Here is another list. I'm not going to read it anymore because it's just getting too long. And more. I think and more because I want to show you the more. So I will stop the share and then show you another share. Okay, so share screen, and this one is here. Yeah, share. Okay, let me switch to my screen. Not this one. This one, okay. It's saying ChatGPT 3.5. I'm asking it some questions. The first question is, which USA media company do have Jewish senior executive? So the last time I was asking the senior executives who are Jews. Now I'm reversing the questions. Which company? Walt Disney News Corporation, which also owns Fox Corporation, Viacom, Comcast, Time Warner, CBS, the New York Times, IAC Interactive Corp. More example. Okay, more example. CNN, NBC, Fox News, repeat again, HBO, ABC, Netflix, Wise Media, Discovery Channel, Bloomberg. Any more? More example. Warner Brothers, Paramount Pictures, Columbia Pictures, DreamWorks, MGM, Hulu, AMC, BuzzFeed, the Western Company, Washington Post, etc., etc. So we know that the Jews has a very tight control on the media. Okay, let's go back. So share screen again with which one? Keynote, yeah. Share. Okay, go back to the keynote here. Yeah. Now let's look at from the China point of view. China achieved extreme poverty elimination in 2020, although 2020 is obviously influenced very significantly by COVID-19. The lower part, you see a picture from the World Bank, which give a report that China has lifted 800 million people out of poverty. And this is a historical event, never happened anywhere before. China's GDP. Yes, China's GDP is poor, is dropping. For example, in the 2010, it was about 13%, 12%. Now it's about 5.2%. It dropped, but it's still much better off than most of the developed nations, G7's GDP. In terms of G7, the worst is actually Germany. Germany GDP contracted in 2023. Although Germany's GDP contracted. It now moved from the fourth position in terms of global GDP into the third position, displaying Japan. So Japan had an even worse GDP than Germany. But China GDP is worse. Yeah, everybody says it's worse. But you look at the real data, it's still at about 5%. Still at 5%, not actually not bad at all. Trade balance. This is a monthly trade balance. You see a very small dip there. It is the February 2023. And all the trade in China, this very interesting look. Every year, February is always small. Why? Because we have Chinese New Year in February. In terms of domestic consumptions, let's look at the China New Year holiday travel. Different color represent different years. The worst one, of course, the blue one, 2020. 2021, a little bit better. 2022, the purple one, yep. 23 going up, and 2024 is breaking records. Even compared with the pre-COVID in 2019. This is from South China Morning Post, and this is Henan, and these are the tourists. I don't like to be a tourist at this time in China. Okay, enough. Next one. View navigator. This one, okay. View slide only. This one is from Bloomberg.
The massive crowds in Shanghai railway station ahead of this year's Spring Festival holiday speak to what Chinese officials said on Sunday ended up being a surge in travel spending over the Lunar New Year to levels even higher than before COVID. It's likely a welcome sign for Beijing as the Chinese economy loses steam. The holiday is the busiest yearly travel migration in the world. And by the end of the 8-day span on Saturday, 474 million tourist trips were made, up 34% from the same time a year ago. Millions of migrants have since returned to major cities like Shanghai or Beijing after reuniting with family in hometowns.
It was really crowded this year. It felt like it was the first time for me to experience the Spring Festival rush thoroughly.
Chinese officials say not only was tourism spending up by around 50% over 2023, it was up 7% over this time in 2019 before the pandemic. Revenue per trip, though, has remained below pre-COVID levels. One of the most popular activities during this year's holiday was watching films. China's box office revenue exceeded over $1 billion over the 8 days, a new record high. The figures are likely a relief for policymakers as China grapples with multiple challenges, including a plunging stock market and declining property values, and as consumer prices fell furthest since the 2009 recession last month. It's pushing authorities to cut interest rates in an attempt to spark growth and revive an economy low on confidence and facing spiraling deflation.
Okay, so let me see whether I have another slide. Okay, and that is my presentation. So I will stop share and then start the discussion. Stop share. So anyone, any questions, please unmute yourself and then we can discuss. Yes, please unmute yourself.
Oh, hi. Thank you, Albert. That was fascinating. And yeah, I agree with your points. I don't know if you're aware, but there's a really good blog called Pearls and Irritations. And most of the contributors, like retired university professors, retired diplomats. And it has a lot on China-US relationships and so-called white man's media, which you were referring to before. But yeah, thank you. I'm very grateful.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else?
What was I going to say?
Yes.
Forgot. Market.
Yeah, you are on now. Yes.
Do you think it's likely that there will be a conflict across the Taiwan Straits?
No.
No.
No. First of all, Taiwan is part of China. So from the government point of view, there's no reason to destroy your own area. So a massive invasion into Taiwan, destroying all the Taiwan infrastructure is not likely. So I think the best outcome, I hope, is Taiwan voluntarily unite with mainland China and operate under full autonomy as either a full autonomy region or a special administration region like Hong Kong. So that will be the best outcome. And the second outcome, I think, will be a decapitalization operation whereby some agent may be coming from Taiwanese themselves do an assassination of the president and then do a coup and change the government. And then after that, that new government make a decision to join China. That will be the second best option. Of course, the third option is by military force, and the PLA send armies onto the Taiwan island and then took the island by force with some casualties. So that will be, and then in terms of whether during that time, Taiwan will receive Western military support. My answer is no, I don't think so. The example is Ukraine. At the moment, NATO and Western countries do not officially send any military people into Ukraine. So the same will happen to Taiwan. I don't think Western supporters like America or even Japan will send in any military assets into Taiwan. Yes, at the moment they will be selling the second-hand assets to Taiwan. I think that is a very stupid move by the Taiwanese government. But yes, they are selling them some second-hand weapons. But these weapons is almost useless against PLA. So there's no point. And in terms of the aircraft carrier now stationed in Japan and on the west of Pacific. If that happens, I believe the aircraft carrier will quickly withdraw to Hawaii or somewhere like that in the middle of Pacific. I don't think they will be engaged in a coastal war between United States and China, because again, sending some missiles to the warships will cost China in millions, whereas losing a warship will cost American in billions. So the economic is not there. So I don't think there is a likely chance. And in terms of likelihood, I think the next 10 years is still unlikely, but that likelihood will increase rapidly as it approaches 2049. 2049 is significant because it will be the 100th anniversary of PRC. And one of the objectives in this second 100-year celebration is a strong, united nation of China. What does it mean by strong is that means economically, the people will be mostly in middle class. Technologically, it will be self-sufficient at least. And united means Taiwan is united with mainland China. So that will be the deadline. And that deadline is 2049. Of course, it won't happen on 2049. So that might happen for a bit earlier, maybe 5 years earlier. So I think as we approach it, it will become more and more dangerous. Yes.
Albert,
Yes.
thank you for your talk. Referring to your list of Jewish people in high places in America, I feel very uncomfortable about that. I think that it becomes an arbitrary list. It's picked out. It doesn't necessarily make any sense because there are plenty of other people of different nationalities who are in powerful positions.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what you're referring to there, but I think there is a danger in picking out arbitrary companies. It might look impressive as you list them, but there are many hundreds of companies, and it also does not speak to the integrity of those people to be making decisions in the proper way. So I just felt uncomfortable with that.
Okay, so I think that let me explain. The Jewish population in United States is at about 3%. So about 3% of the people in America are Jewish. Okay, that's fine. But in terms of representation from senior positions, for example, in the cabinet, 8 out of, I think it's 17, 8 out of 17 is a significant faction. In terms of media, looking at the list, these are well-known major media, and they are controlled by a special ethnic background. Of course, I can do the same, say for Chinese. Okay, I ask how many officials in current government's senior position are Chinese. So let's just do it and then see for ourselves. So I will go to here and then share this. So now I'm on ChatGPT, and then I will ask the question similar to that one. How many Chinese are in Biden's
What's the
cabinet.
That's right.
Okay, it's replying. Okay, 0. No, none. Okay. Now, how many Indians?
Not Indians. What about
Are
Palestine?
okay, you suggest which ethnic groups you want to ask?
Yes, Albert, I understand your point, but I don't think that's not relevant really, because there are how many minorities are in American politics. That comes from the whole history of who came to America and who are influential, and they can be influential for many reasons, from their basic talent and their drive, not due to their ethnicity. So I just still don't see the point. I think you have to treat people as individuals, not make assumptions about their race.
The reason I point that out is, first of all, it is a peculiarity. Okay, it is not a it is statistically, it is very significant. Right? Statistically, having that large amount of a particular ethnic groups in senior positions in both politics and media. So, and again, we can ask the same question. We will find similar results in finance as well. The Jews are occupying important financial positions in America. Okay, so that is the fact. Okay, I single that out because it is a statistical impossibility. If we assume that we assume every groups will have similar abilities, and then we suddenly find a particular ethnic groups in this particular country have this particularly overrepresentation in senior positions. We will have to start thinking why. Of course, I can't give you the answer why, but I will put that out to you as this is something we should look at. Whether that had impact on geopolitics, I would say yes, because we have a Jewish state in Middle East which is engaging in war at the moment. So, being Jewish, will they facilitate policies which will encourage or support Israel? That's why geopolitics come in. Yes, please.
I think that's
Do you have statistics on the financial influence of the Jewish population?
Well, we can ask how many okay, let me just share screen first so that you can see what I'm typing. Okay. Chat GDP, this one. Yes. Share. Okay, how many senior executive in USA financial companies? Okay.
I don't think he put in Jewish. It's good though.
Okay, let's see.
You need to put Jewish.
Challenging for exact number. Okay. What's meant can vary depend. Okay, let's specialize more.
Have a look at your question, Albert. I don't think it has Jewish in it.
Oh, how many senior?
Just add to it.
Probably I'm more interested, say, in the power and the influence, say, in banking and in donations to the political parties.
Okay, now I add in the Jewish now. Let's see. No, it doesn't return the result. But so I don't know. Well, because we can only do I'm a desktop researcher. I can only depends on information from networks. Yeah.
Does it return any information on banking?
Okay, let's look at it for banking.
I don't think it will. Oh, God, those figures.
Share. Okay. How many Jewish banking executives in USA? Okay. How many Jewish banking executives in USA? No, it doesn't do anything. So this area, they are not particularly strong. I had just
No.
point out two
Well, they could be.
particularly strong area is in politics and in media. In the other area, we don't see any particular. For example, there is a particular strong ethnic groups in American companies as well. It's the Indian seems to occupy a number of high management positions in American technology companies.
That's true.
But again, what is the impact? We don't know. But being in politics and in media and with a large Jewish background will cause us to start thinking whether their position will influence the policy of the Biden administration and the policy of the media. We should start thinking about that. I'm not saying they must be a negative influence, but we need to understand, we need to know that. Yes, please.
Can I change the subject?
Yes.
In international relations theory, it's believed that a bipolar or multipolar world is more stable than a unipolar world, which is the way it is at the moment with America. So if you have during the Cold War, it was actually quite stable. You had your proxy wars and that, but it was actually quite stable internationally. So if there is this bipolar or multipolar world, it will actually be better for humanity as such, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. I also think that a multipolar world is better. But there is another factor here we have to take into account. Is the MAD, M-A-D, mutually assured destruction. Okay. Before the invention of atomic weapons, yes, wars are cruel and are bloody. Millions of people die. But with nuclear weapons, it is on a different level. So a multipolar world plus this MAD, mutually assured destruction, can they give us a better world, at least for human beings? I hope so. But another very interesting question is, what do we mean by better? As a common citizen, okay, I'll let you talk first.
Oh, sorry, I'm basically just talking about conflict. And my wish is that countries wouldn't spend so much on arms and spend it on their population, if that makes sense.
Yeah. But now, what we are seeing in America today, they are the biggest spender in military budget. their infrastructure is collapsing. Their healthcare is expensive. The drug problem is everywhere, homelessness. That means at the moment, what we are seeing is this unique polar world, American being the only power. It is not doing anything good for its own citizen. But in terms of GDP, USA is still growing to a lesser degree than China. But anyway, it's growing at about 2%, 2.3% last year. Where had that money go? The economies have been getting bigger, but we are seeing a lot of people dropping into poor region. That means the money going to the top 10%, top 1%, whatever. So will a multipolar world give humanity a situation whereby more people can be living comfortably? To me, as a small potato, as a common people, what I want, I look at what I want. Well, I want to have a safe environment. I want my children to be able to get educated. I want to be able to fill my stomach. I have food to eat. I have covered a home. This is human nature. We just want to be like that. So will that multimodal world give us this? I don't know, but I hope so. Yes, please.
On that topic, that's a very interesting point. Would China police its contribution, say, to the African countries, so the governments don't take it for their own fat bellies and it gets down to the common people? We know that China does have influence now in Africa, but does it police and see that its contributions there are used for the purposes that they've given it?
Okay, now there's a very big difference between the Western style of support and the Chinese style of support. The Western style of support, for example, you give some aids to African countries. That aid is a value at a certain amount, and then the amount of money is given to that country's officials, and the officials spend it. That's what we understand as the operation. But most of the time, that money will be associated with some U.S. companies. So the officials need to use the money onto the company, on the U.S. company. So the money go around, go back to China. So go back to USA. But for China, China's aid is different. China's aid is not money. You say, okay, you want a road. Okay, we build it for you. You want a school? No problem, we build it for you. You want a hospital? No problem, we build it for you. But no money. So that is
it's sort of like our attitude to begging in Australia. We give them a meal rather than put money there.
Yes, exactly. No hit upon. Yes, I have another question, please. Yes.
Do you think it's likely Israel will get desperate, especially under the influence of the fundamentalists in the cabinet, to let off a nuclear weapon? Because that'd hot things up in the Middle East.
I hope everybody will have a sense knowing that nuclear weapon is never a good choice. I do hope so. But unfortunately, we have people like Hitler. We have psychopaths. And so there's always a risk. I don't know. I really don't know. I hope not.
Yeah. Yes, it's just always awkward when you've got fundamentalists who believe the end of the world is
Yes.
coming.
Yeah.
I
This
hurry
is-
it along.
Any more question? Okay. Then I will look at my my email and fix the next term's date, and then we will see you next term. Thank you so much. And
Thank
bye
you.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Albert.
Bye bye.
bye.